What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex here, and you're watching the DC edition of the Ragin Nation show. This is Webster's. We're talking about all things that matter to me in the DC Extended Universe. This is episode number 43, and in this episode, I'm going to give you my spoiler talkback review for Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. This is one of the most highly anticipated films of 2016. I mean, we got Batman and Superman, two of the most iconic superheroes in comic books, facing off against each other, and this is a pretty huge movie. I saw it last Thursday, 6 p.m., the very first showing in IMAX 3D. I didn't really care too much about the 3D, but the IMAX sequences were spectacular. I think there were 5 sequences that were filmed with IMAX cameras, and it looked absolutely wonderful. And you know what? We're going to get into spoilerific material, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, stop watching this video right now because we're going to get into really specific details. We're going to talk about things that I really liked about the film and some things that didn't quite work for me. Now, it's kind of ironic because this is a spoiler video where we're going to talk about spoilers, but to be completely honest, there isn't a whole lot to spoil about this film, mainly because, well, the whole plot of the movie is already suggested in the title, Batman vs. Superman and Dawn of Justice. It's about the inception of the Justice League, and to top things off, Doomsday and Wonder Woman, which could have been big surprises, have already been spoiled in the trailers. So I really didn't get any surprises from this film. There were some great sequences, but there weren't really much surprises. But anyways, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this movie. Let's start off with something that I really did like about this film, and that is the connection with Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice with Man of Steel. I loved how they opened up the film, and that was with Bruce Wayne's perspective of the Superman versus General Zod battle. When we saw the battle from Man of Steel, we're only seeing them fight each other, and we're seeing all the destruction happen in the background. But when we kicked off Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, it started off with this this sequence. Well, I mean, the same sequence, but seen from the perspective of Bruce Wayne and the people from street level. And the destruction is just way more massive because you're seeing it from the perspective of the people on the ground, and you know, they're trying to avoid disaster from all these things falling down on them. So you can imagine how intense that could be. And I thought it was a really, really great sequence. It actually brought it down to a more personal level, and you can see how Bruce Wayne took that battle really personally, especially because one of his buildings that was located in Metropolis got destroyed, and his employees, I mean, were obliterated from all the destruction. So he was pissed off about that. And when I watched that sequence, I was thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. I'm really liking what they're doing with this. I'm liking the direction that they're taking with this sequence. I mean, starting off with this sequence. So that was really, really cool. All right. Another thing that I thought was great that connected this film with Man of Steel was the scenes with Clark Kent's parents, and that would be the characters played by Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. Even though Kevin Costner's scene was a bit of a, I guess, like either a dream sequence or something happening in his head, I think scenes like that with him and his parents, you know, Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, I felt that that was the heart of the film. The film didn't have a whole lot of heart, but this is where they bring it down to a more grounded level. It brings it down to earth. It shows you that there is human emotion in this movie. It shows you that even though we're watching a film that deals with gods and big iconic characters facing off against each other and really, really over-the-top things that are going on, a lot of crazy things are going on in this film, those sequences with the parents really bring it back down to a more grounded level. It brings it more down to a human level. It shows you that Superman has a human side to him, and it's not just about all the incredible physical things he can do. So that was great. I'm glad that they added that into the film to really show you the more human side of the movie, all right? So that's something that did work for me a lot. Now, let's move on to something that didn't work for me, and that was that there was just too much stuff going on. All these subplots, I mean, Lois Lane subplot, Bruce Wayne subplot, Superman subplot, Lex Luthor subplot, and a little bit of Diana Prince thrown in here and there. There's just too much going on, and it feels like a lot of the scenes weren't even complete before they decide to cut to another scene with a completely different character. It feels like it just happens abruptly, which leads me to talk about the editing of the film. I think it was poorly edited, mainly because they jump from scene to scene to scene without really completing those scenes. It just felt like it was just moving along too fast without really establishing what is really supposed to happen in those scenes. And at the end of the day, we just didn't get enough of anybody. It was just a little bit of scenes thrown in here and there, but not complete scenes, which really showed us that there was enough screen time given to each character. I think the balance was quite poorly done, because all we got was a lot of Bruce Wayne, a lot of Batman, and, you know, make no mistake about it, I loved all the Batman and Bruce Wayne scenes, especially the Batman scenes, but we weren't treated to enough of I guess, Superman scenes. A lot of Superman scenes were all done more montage style before we got to the big finale, and everything else, and as for the other characters, it didn't really flesh out like a lot of the other characters. For example, Lex Luthor, or even Diana Prince, even though she was just a teaser. At the end of the day, we just didn't get a whole lot of anybody. So that's really unfortunate. Let's talk about something that I did really like, and that was Batman's fighting style. And it was totally inspired from Arkham Knight. If you've played the Arkham Knight video game, you know what his fighting style is like. And I love the brutal nature of it. In fact, I didn't mind that he used guns. I didn't mind that he stabbed thugs with knives. I thought that it was an evolution for the character. I mean, we've seen the same version of Batman over and over and over again, and, you know, from the live action films to the cartoons to the comics, and I felt that what we saw here was an evolution of the character. I think it's great to see something fresh thrown into the mix, because it really gives us surprises. And when I saw Batman doing a lot of those things, it really made me feel like an impact. I felt an impact in those scenes, and it really shows you that this is an extension of the character, and it's an extension of the character's emotions. It's his way of expressing himself and how he wants to unleash hell on those who oppose him. So that was really cool. I really didn't mind the use of knives and guns. It was just something that I thought was an evolution for the character. And I understand why some fans, some hardcore fans, might disagree with it, but I really enjoyed it. I didn't mind that at all. Now, let's talk about Lex Luthor. This has probably got to be one of the worst Lex Luthors ever portrayed ever. Now, I was completely open to the idea of Jesse Eisenberg playing Lex Luthor. The idea that they had was this young entrepreneur CEO who runs a tech company, like a startup company, which is LexCorp. But the thing is that we didn't get to know a whole lot about what they do at LexCorp, and I didn't really understand Lex Luthor's motivations for why he even wants to stir up all this evil. Yes, I get that Lex Luthor is an evil character. I read the comics, I saw the cartoons, I've seen the previous films. I understand why he's evil. But if we're going to make a serious film here, at least explain to us why he goes from this young adult to, you know, who runs this tech company, to someone who's just insanely, murderously evil. Like, I mean, we're talking about mass murder here. Like, why does he want to do these things? Why does he want Batman and Superman to fight? Even though he has his reasons, what are the reasons for those reasons? It doesn't quite make any sense why he would want to do such things. You know, it just doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't feel like it makes any sense whatsoever. I mean, this is a really, really young guy here. It doesn't feel like like he's been through enough or had enough life experiences to evolve into this evil human being. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And his version of Lex Luthor, it feels like he was acting under pressure. Like, he was just trying to be so different. He wanted to be a different version of the Gene Hackman version or a Kevin Spacey version of Lex Luthor. But he almost wanted to emulate Heath Ledger's Joker mixed with the Riddler. It just felt very, very like a mishmash of things, which didn't feel like it brought justice to the Lex Luthor character. So that didn't work for me. It just didn't. Now let's talk about something that I did like. I loved Diana Prince's, or rather Wonder Woman's entrance. Specifically her entrance. I think there were 3 scenes with her as Diana Prince, and those were teasers for what's to come later on in the movie. And then we get the spectacular entrance of Wonder Woman. You see her with her sword and shield. She's got her hair flowing in slow motion, and then a pumped up rock music comes on, and it was awesome. It was a holy crap moment, even though I saw it in the trailers. And I think that all those elements combined really helped build it up. And that was awesome. It was a great intro sequence. Now, the downside of that was that after I saw the intro sequence for Wonder Woman, everything else that followed with her scenes was kind of meh. That's what it felt like to me. And it was mainly because it wasn't a Wonder Woman movie. They just threw in scenes of her which probably lasted 2 to 3 seconds each, and it was just her flying around doing stuff. That was all it was. And it really didn't focus on her because it's not a Wonder Woman movie. It's a Batman and Superman movie. And her fighting Doomsday and all those random scenes that were edited in were just kind of they were just, in a way, they were teasers. In a way, they were just thrown in at the last minute. That's what it feels like. And at the end of the day, they didn't really do anything for me because a lot of those scenes were just shown in the marketing, in the trailers, the TV spots. A lot of that stuff was already shown, and therefore there wasn't a whole lot of surprises for that. I mean, it was great that, you know, she used her bracelets, she used the lasso, the lasso and the sword and shield, and she did a lot of high-flying action, and that was really, really cool. But still, at the end of the day, it wasn't something that felt very, very spectacular. Wonder Woman doesn't steal the show. She was only awesome in that entrance. It was a big entrance, and it was cool, but everything else that followed really didn't feel that spectacular, as spectacular as it could have been. Which leads me to talk about fan service. I understand that Zack Snyder is a comic book fan. I understand that he made this movie for comic book fans. I get that. And it's totally evident throughout the entire movie because this movie is filled with fan service. Now, like, fan service is great if you throw it in there, like, subtly, but a lot of the fan service that was thrown in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice was completely in your face. For example, the whole Wonder Woman thing, that was fan service. We get it. Justice League is coming. We get it. You don't have to keep on doing these things that are completely in your face to tell us that or remind us that Justice League is coming. And then there's so many sequences that are fan service to lead up to Justice League, when in fact, if you cut out all these scenes, these fan service scenes, it would be the exact same movie. And I know this because let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. Let's get down to these specific things. For example, the Wonder Woman scenes. If you cut out Wonder Woman, all of her scenes completely, it's the same movie. If you cut out the dream sequences with the dark side references, the Red Sun Batman, the Parademons, if you cut that entire scene out, it is the same movie. If you cut out that dream sequence with the Flash, and which is kind of a hint to the Flashpoint paradox, if you cut that out, it's the same movie. Mainly because any of that actually relates to the main story. It doesn't. These are just scenes to tease Darkseid. They're scenes to tease Justice League. We know it's already happening, but Zack Snyder decided to throw these things in to please the fans. Now, here's the crazy part. Now, this is just my theory, and that is there are a lot of fans that really love this film, and it's mainly because of all the fan service that is thrown in. A lot of these comic book references that they are familiar with. And I have a feeling that if all these comic book references were taken out, they would feel that it's kind of a different movie to them. Because when you get comic book references, you get goosebumps. When you see these things that are from the comics, you get nerdgasms. And the fact is that there were a lot of these things, and if a comic book fan, like a hardcore comic book fan, gets enough nerdgasms, that's enough to make them feel that this is a great movie. Am I right or am I wrong? I mean, like, this is not a very well-structured plot. It's a film that's all over the place, and it just kind of, like, it starts off, like, simmering, and then suddenly it just comes to, like, a full-on boiling pot. And it just stays that way for the rest of the film. It's not, like, a gradual build-up. And it almost feels like Zack Snyder didn't feel like he needed to make a normal story with a very, very standard narrative structure, mainly because he threw in enough comic book references to please the fans. And that's why I feel that's why fans think that this is a really great movie. And if you love this movie, more power to you. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Doomsday. I think that Doomsday is a character that should not have been thrown into this film, because I didn't care about the character of Doomsday. I would rather Lex Luthor be the main villain. He is something that is a precursor to the Doomsday character, but at the end of the day, Doomsday was just thrown in there. And I felt that if they took out Doomsday and made the movie just about Batman and Superman fighting, and make the finale about Batman versus Superman fighting like a full-on, like a full-on superhero showdown, it would be a much better movie. Put Doomsday in another movie. Put Doomsday in Man of Steel 2. I think that would have been a much better movie, but they decided to throw him in there and as a tool to bring in Wonder Woman. It was just a tool. It was a gimmicky plot device. Doomsday didn't need to be in there. I think that they could have just stuck with Batman versus Superman, and then that would have been a much better film, in my opinion. I think that the film would be could cut out a half hour. It would make the plot a lot tighter, and it would build up a lot more gradually to the point where we get to the grand finale. It would be a pumped up battle. Like, the fans were all pumped up because finally we got to the point where they're going to fight each other. I typed in here, focus on Batman versus Superman, make a build-up, and let me just address that a little bit more. I think that if they focus the film entirely on Batman versus Superman, without Wonder Woman, without Doomsday, I think that, like I said, it would have made a better film. Imagine this, alright? Batman hates Superman, we've already seen that, but Batman challenges Superman. He fails. And then he challenges him again. He fails. But then he found a way to beat him. He succeeds. And it eventually leads into this whole huge battle, this grand finale. That is a gradual build-up towards something big. And I think that's the way it could have made for a better movie without Doomsday. Because, like I said, the Doomsday thing was a bit gimmicky, and it didn't feel as strong of a climax compared to the Batman versus Superman sequence with the armored Batman. Oh, by the way, speaking of something that I really, really liked, I loved the Batmobile Chase. And it wasn't so much that I loved the Batmobile. The new Batmobile was cool, but it wasn't cool in the sense of like what it's capable of doing and its functionality. I just love the direction of the Batmobile. It was exciting, it was intense, it was full of these crazy stunts, it was very violent, and it was just a really great sequence. I mean, he was driving the Batmobile through trailers and through boats, and it was just full of surprises. I loved it. And finally, let's talk about the cameos of the metahumans. Bruce Wayne gets this USB drive or something, and he watches these footage of the other potential Justice League members. But before that, we get these really perfect logos. For example, the Flash logo, the lightning over the circle, and the Wonder Woman logo, the two W's that are in gold on top of each other. I'm just thinking, why do these logos look so perfect? It's as if he took them out of a comic book and he just copy and pasted it there. The logos look perfect. It was completely fan service, okay? And then to top things off, we get those the surveillance footage of the Flash, of Wonder Woman, and that Aquaman sequence was just silly. Believe me, it was just so awkward. Aquaman stares at the camera for so long, and I'm just trying to figure out what is he doing, and he stares at the camera for so long before he decides to take the spear to the camera and then takes it out. That was just an awkward sequence. It just was very poorly done, and like I said before, these moments are fan service. It didn't pump me up. It didn't get me all excited. I knew Justice League was coming, but the way that they built it up was just so it was just so forced. It felt like they just threw it in there. And you know what? Like he said, it's a movie from a comic book fan made for comic book fans. But the general movie going public, the way they're gonna think about like Doomsday and these cameo appearances and the moments with Wonder Woman, they're gonna the dream sequences. They're gonna be wondering what the hell. That made no sense to me. I couldn't interpret anything with that. I mean, speaking from their perspective. I mean, I understood all the comic book references, but for the general movie going public, they're not gonna know what any of that means at all. They're just going to be watching it, and they're going to feel so lost, and thus giving the movie a poor review because there's just too much stuff that they don't really understand, and that can hurt the movie. So, I mean, you know, I really hate to compare this with Marvel, but the way Marvel does these things is they leave it at the end in like an end credit scene, okay? So that way, if you don't watch it, it doesn't matter. It's the same way how I feel about these scenes that they threw in the movie. They just put it in the middle of the movie, when in fact a lot of the stuff could be thrown in like maybe at the end of the movie, like at the end credits. So even if you walk out, it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect the story. A lot of these scenes, when you cut them out, it doesn't affect the main story, and that is why it just feels like this movie is too long. 2.5 hours is just a little bit too much, and a lot of this stuff could be trimmed off. Okay, so I've said a lot of stuff about how I feel about this movie, a lot of the stuff that I really, really liked, and a lot of the stuff that didn't quite work for me, and you kind of see a pattern here. I loved Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman. The Bruce Wayne scenes, the Batmobile scenes, the scenes as Batman. I think the only thing that could have been better is if there was more detective work and if there was more gadgets. Other than that, love the Batman scenes. They were absolutely awesome. But like I said before, this is not a Batman movie. This is a Batman versus Superman movie. It's a Dawn of Justice movie. That's why there's other characters in there. But I love the Batman scenes, and the Batman scenes were the saving grace. Or rather, Ben Affleck was the saving grace about Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. Now, here's a question that I have for you before I end off. Now, this is directed to the people, the fans, who really love this film. Do you think that this film could have been better? Think about it. You love this movie so much. Do you think it's perfect in any way? If not, what do you think could have been better? Imagine how much better the movie would be had it been just a better movie, had it been done differently. Like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine this film being better? And I want to ask, like, if you can leave in the comment section below what you think could be done better, as someone who really enjoyed the film, as someone who loved the film, as someone that thought that this was an excellent film. Do you think that this film could have been better? What would you have done differently? And do you think that if they removed Wonder Woman, if they removed all the dream sequences, if they removed the cameos, heck, if they removed Doomsday and made it a full-on Batman vs. Superman movie, do you think that it would have been a better movie? Let me know in the comment section below. I think that it would have made for a much better movie had they removed all those things. It just made it overlong and made it bloated. They could trim off a lot of the fat, and I think that a lot of those sequences are the fat. So once again, I'm just going to ask you one more time. Do you think it could have been a better movie? What would you have done differently to make it a better movie? Let me know in the comment section below. And that's all I got to say in this video. This is my spoiler talkback review. Like I said before, it isn't much of a spoiler talkback review when the movie's already spoiled from the title itself and the marketing. The marketing really gave everything away, thus leaving us with not very many surprises. I think that the only thing that was a surprise, a pleasant surprise to me, was Batman. All of Batman. Bruce Wayne, Batman, the Batmobile, his fighting, all that stuff was a pleasant surprise to me, and that was the best part about the movie. And there you have it. That's all I got to say in this video. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, Ragin Nation. My name is Alex. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Production plus marketing budget. I'm pretty sure their marketing budget was probably like $200+ million.